Welcome to EPISD's Digital Discoveries, exploring the world of education technology in the El Paso Independent School District.
Hi, welcome to this segment of Digital Discoveries. We are continuing our look at the new technology application TEKS. And so, since we're talking TEKS, we're probably directing these episodes toward our teachers, our classroom teachers, and more specifically to our K-8 teachers. And so, in the past few segments, we looked at an introduction to the TEKS, kind of a general overall view of the TEKS. We looked at the strands that are involved in the TEKS, and then we looked at how to read the TEKS, which was probably a review for most of our teachers. And today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be comparing the student expectations from one grade level to another to see how they're different. So sit back and relax. This is a TEKS lecture, and I know sometimes a lot of our educators go, oh my goodness, there's so many, I've been through so many TEKS trainings before. But hopefully this is some new information, because we do know that these TEKS, these technology application TEKS, are brand new, and so we know that you haven't seen these before. If you're watching this online on our YouTube channel, our EPISD TV Studio YouTube channel, you can actually pause, get a copy of our TEKS, get a copy of the TEKS, and follow along. If you'd like a copy, you can pick one up right there at that website at the epsilon.com Technology Application TEKS group. And so there's a whole group for teachers up there on Project Share that's dedicated just to information about the new technology application TEKS. So if you haven't visited that website, go ahead and check it out. You don't even have to be an Epsilon member in order to pull down a copy of the technology application TEKS. They're in one of the public drop boxes on that site. So let's look at student expectations. Earlier, we looked at how the student expectations are written. Now let's look specifically at how many there are at each grade level. From K to 2, there's 26 student expectations. And you're going to start noticing a little trend here, I think. In 3 to 9, there's 29 student expectations. In 6th grade, there's 35. So you notice that at each grade level, or each chunk of the technology application TEKS, the number of student expectations increase until we get into middle school. And then in middle school, that becomes the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade all have 35 student expectations. So what you would think, just by looking at this, what you would think is that all of the student expectations in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in our middle schools would be similar. They'd be the same thing, just repeated in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. And that's not the case at all. Well, I'll show you that in a second. Remember, we talked about the 6 strands in the new TEKS, which are different than the previous years when there was only 4 strands. So let's break it down even more and see how many student expectations are in each strand. So if we look at creativity and innovation, you can see that in kindergarten through 2nd grade, there's 5. 3 through 5, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, 4, 4, 4. You're going to notice that in the middle school area, there's going to be a lot of similarity. And so that would, you'd mentally think, well, they must be the same just because the numbers are the same. That's not the case at all. If we look at the strand communication and collaboration, kindergarten has 4 student expectations, 3 through 5th has 6, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th all have 3 expectations each. The strand research and information fluency, we start off in kindergarten with 3, and then across the board all the way up through 8th grade, there's 4 expectations. Critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, 4 in our primary, 4 in our 3 through 5, and then 6 all the way across for middle school. You notice that middle school block, they all look the same. 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 6, 6, 6. And so you'd think just by looking at that those strands, those student expectations are exactly the same, and they're not. So if you have that idea in your head that the 6th grade student expectations are the same as the 7th grade or the same as the 8th, they're not. In digital citizenship, you notice that we really push that in 3 through 5th grade, and there's a reason for that, is because those students are going to be going into middle school. And so in in 3rd through 5th grade, we really want to push digital citizenship, because by the time they get into middle school, that's when kids really start exploring the internet, playing around with social networking. So we really want to make sure that they understand how to behave and behave themselves online. And finally, technology operations and concepts across the board, 7th in kindergarten. And the reason there's so many in kindergarten is because we want our students to get the basic operations down of how to use a computer, how to surf the internet, how to use a mouse, things like that. It's very critical to learn how to do that in our kindergarten through 2nd grade. Then as we get into 5th grade, 3 through 5, the expectations go down, the number of expectations go down. Then when we hit middle school, the technology operations and digital concepts goes way up. There's 14 in the middle school. That's because we want our students in the middle school to really learn how to use the technology properly, so that by the time they get into high school, they really, really know how to use the technology to help themselves in high school. So that's how the strands are broken down. That's how the numbers of each one are broken down, and they should match the numbers that we just talked about in the previous slide. So let's compare 2 separate strands. We're going to take a look at them through grade levels and see if we can see some interesting things about them. Let's look at, we're going to go all the way from K to 8. Now we're going to break these down first in K2 and then 3-5. So if you'll notice in this slide here, let's pull that slide up so we can see it on the screen. You can see that in K through 2nd grade, there's in creativity and innovation, there's five expectations, but those 5 expectations don't match the 3 through 5. As a matter of fact, I have a little arrow there, and that arrow shows the only thing that actually matches. So there's only one expectation in creativity and innovation. There's only one student expectation in K through 2 that matches a student expectation in 3 through 5. So in all other cases, they're completely different student expectations. So creativity and innovation has 4 different student expectations than 3 through 5, where there's only one matching student expectation. That's where that arrow is. So you can see that where it says in K through 2, create original projects using a variety of resources. You can see that up there on the 3 through 5. Notice again that 3 through 5 only has 3 student expectations, but they're completely different than the kindergarten through 2nd grade. So let's keep looking at creativity and innovation, but this time let's look at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. You'll notice that on this slide, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, where there's an arrow, all of those are similar. All of those are, so creativity and innovation 1A in 6th grade is the same as 7A in 7th grade, or excuse me, 1A in 7th grade and 1A in 8th grade. So those are very, very similar. Same thing for 1B and 1B in 7th grade and 1B in 8th grade. Same thing for C. So 1C in 6th grade is the same as 1C in 7th grade, is the same as 1C in 8th grade. Where it starts to change is in 1D. And in 1D, you notice that if you just started off with the first verb, discuss trends, you think, oh, okay, well, that's not so bad. If I look across that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, you'd actually think, well, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, discuss, those are the similar, but they're really not. If you look at D here, it says discuss trends and possible outcomes. Whoops, for some reason that moved. Discuss trends and possible outcomes. Over on D here, it says discuss trends and make predictions. So that's a completely different thing besides discuss possible outcomes. And then finally over there, 1D in 8th grade, analyze trends and forecast possibilities. So those should be familiar to all of our teachers as STAR test expectations. Discuss, analyze, make predictions. Those are all things that are in the STAR test as well. So you should notice that as the students are moving across from 6th grade to 8th grade, they go up on Bloom's taxonomy until they're finally forecasting possibilities. So you can see by these 2 slides I just showed you that The student expectations may stay the same across grade levels, but they may not. So just because there are 4 student expectations in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, that doesn't mean they're the same student expectations in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So let's look at another set of student expectations in the grade levels. These are communication and collaboration, the strand communications and collaborations. You'll notice there's no arrows on here. There's no arrows. And the reason there's no arrows is because the students are doing completely different things in kindergarten and 3 through 5. So the K2 student expectations are completely different in this strand than the 3-5 student expectations. So one would think, why are they doing that? Why are they doing these completely different expectations? The reason is this, is that in order to do these 3-5 communication and collaboration, in order to do these, the students had to have done these. So hopefully you'll see also that we don't want to skip grades. We don't want to leave things out, because if we don't do this stuff in K2, the students won't be successful in 3-5. So we can't just pick and choose TEKS. We have to be able to do all of those. So let's look at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for this strand, communication and collaboration. You notice my little arrows here. There's only one that's common across this strand, and that's 2B. And for 6th grade, 2B for 7th grade, and 2B for 8th grade. That's the only one that's common. All the others are different. So in communication and collaboration for 2A, participate in personal learning networks. Now look what happens in 7th grade. By 7th grade, students are expected to create personal learning networks. And then by 8th grade, they're not only creating personal learning networks, but they're creating and managing personal learning networks. So here, they're just participating. Here they're creating, and by 8th grade, they're creating and managing personal learning networks. Why is that important? Because by 10th grade, by 9th grade, students should actually be working in personal learning networks to do collaborative, cooperative learning. And the only way to do that is if they pick up those skills in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. You'll notice again that the only thing that's common with any of these is 6B in this strand. 6B, 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 7B, 6B, 7B, and 8B. That's the only one that's common. Even C is different. Read and discuss examples. Create products. Create and publish products. So you can see there that the student expectations as they move up from 6th to 8th grade become much more much higher up on Bloom's taxonomy, where the students are asked to do much more. So hopefully you see that as we're working, the students can't skip TEKS. They can't skip technology application TEKS, because if they don't know how to communicate, if they don't know how to participate in a personal learning network, they're going to have a hard time creating one. And if they don't know how to create one, they're going to have a hard time managing one. So they have to have all those things in place, and it's it's scaffolding. It's one built on top of another. So what's the point here? What's this? Okay, what are you trying to say, Holt? What are you trying to tell me? Well, the point, I hope, is kind of obvious here, that each level of the technology application TEKS has specific student expectations in each strand. And just because the number of student expectations are similar does not mean the actual student expectation is similar. So you can have 4 student expectations on communication and collaboration across the board, but they're not going to be the same wording. They're not even going to be the same student expectation. So I did this incredible graphic here that you should be way impressed with, because it took me over 10 minutes to make this. Consider the staircase. This is our student down in the lower left-hand corner, and this is the technology application TEKS embedded into the curriculum. They can't do this without being embedded into the curriculum. Or again, I'll say this, I think I've said this in every single episode, that the technology application TEKS have to be embedded into the curriculum. It's not technology on Thursday or computer lab Wednesdays. It's embedded into the curriculum. It should be just part of your regular teaching process. The tools of technology are no different than the tools of crayons and pencils and things like that. So if our students are going to be successful, they have to go up the staircase all the way through 8th grade, and then by the time they get to 8th grade, if they've done all these technology application TEKS, they'll be what our, I don't know what just happened there. They'll be what our state would say the student is computer literate. Nickelby would say this student is computer literate if they've done all those things. Now, if we do this, if we start picking and choosing our TEKS, if we start pulling things out and saying, I'm not going to do this this year, maybe the teacher next year will be able to do it, or maybe I'm not going to do it in 3rd grade, 5th graders do that. If we start doing that, we start pulling those out, our staircase becomes a jumble like this, and the students will never be able to achieve that student success and achieve computer literacy because they won't be able to go up that staircase. They have to have everything in place. Everything has to be in place. The curriculum has to be in place, the technology embedded into the curriculum, the technology application TEKS taught side by side with the regular core curricular TEKS. They're not separate entities. The TEKS do not say anywhere in the TEKS, defer this to another grade. Nowhere in the technology application TEKS, like in the kindergarten TEKS, does it say, you know what? This kindergarten TEK, you can teach it in 5th grade. It's okay. Just skip it. This 3rd grade TEK, just do it in 6th grade. It's okay. Nowhere does it say that. It says, here is a kindergarten TEK. You got to teach it in kindergarten. Here's a 2nd grade TEK. Got to teach it in 2nd grade. Even though those kindergarten and 2nd grade TEKS are together, that doesn't mean you have to wait till 2nd grade. That means every grade level, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, does all of those TEKS. Kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, does all those TEKS. Same for 3 through 5. They do all of those TEKS. They're not taught separately. 6th grade has its own set of TEKS. 7th grade, 8th grade, same way. So the TEKS, again, don't defer to another grade level. They have to be embedded in each grade level. That's the student expectation. That's a look at our student expectations and how they change from grade level to grade level to grade level. I hope you are getting your appetite whetted a little bit about wanting to start moving your lessons to have embedded technology in them. And if you're having a need to have somebody show you, please call Instructional Technology. We can help you out. And I thank you for joining me for this episode of Digital Discoveries. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Digital Discoveries. Please visit our website for more information and our YouTube channel for all other episodes of Digital Discoveries.